Tonight, a new year begins in the shadow of conflicts. Israel warns war with Hamas could last months. Ukraine and Russia exchange deadly attacks.
I'm thrilled to be back.
The big political races to watch in 2024.
They certainly support an insurrection.
He's a threat.
As dozens of countries hold elections. Plus, a pre-game preview of a new women's hockey league.
It's going to be a big day, the start of something pretty wonderful.
The next Original Six get ready for puck drop.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. There is a somber tone hanging over New Year's Eve celebrations with no immediate prospects for peace in Gaza or Ukraine. Though there is hope more humanitarian aid will reach the enclave, with Israel now prepared to let ships dock in Gaza, lifting its naval blockade. CTV's Jeremy Sharon begins our coverage.
With the start of a new year, the war rages on in Gaza as the crippling humanitarian crisis is compounded.
Right now, hospitals, those who are still partially functioning in Gaza, cannot provide care for those who are injured.
More than 85% of the population in the enclave has been displaced. A quarter of its residents are starving, says the United Nations. So far, limited aid trucks have trickled in through land crossings, but now Israel's foreign minister says they're prepared to let ships deliver it too, lifting its naval blockade on Gaza for the first time since 2007.
Well, I think Israel is just trying to lower the the pressure on their political leaders because there's been so much of an outcry around the world that they've got to do something to ameliorate the humanitarian crisis.
On both sides, there are civilians wishing for a New Year's resolution of the conflict. Our hope for the new year is for the war to stop and to be able to return home, says this displaced Palestinian child. An end some Israelis in Tel Aviv are hopeful for too.
I think we have to go to direct to ceasefire and bring them back and stop this war.
But in central Gaza today, strikes killed at least 35 people. This is the aftermath, buildings flattened to rubble. I was sleeping and suddenly I heard nothing but the sound of bombings, this man says. IDF forces are operating heavily in Khan Yunis, Gaza's second largest city. This region has become the new focus of the war. A war Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says is at its height and will continue for many more months.
Now, Israeli troops are said to be expanding their operations in central and southern Gaza. The UN says Palestinians have nowhere to go. Heather?
Thanks, Jeremy. For the first time since the war began, the U.S. used lethal force against the Houthi militants in the Red Sea. The U.S. says 4 boats with Houthi rebels fired on its helicopters. The choppers firing back, sinking 3 of the 4 ships, killing all crew members on board. The 4th one got away. The incident started when the small boats fired on a merchant vessel that issued a distress signal. Ukraine launched one of its deadliest attacks since Russia's invasion. Then the Russians struck back today with heavy bombardment. CTV's Kamal Karamali now on this latest wave of violence.
Flames light up Kharkiv in the middle of the night early Sunday. What was once apartment buildings, a kindergarten, shops, now ash and rubble. The devastating aftermath of a Russian missile attack on the eastern Ukrainian city, injuring more than 20 people. This is our New Year, says this survivor. What a present Russia has sent us. Ukrainian officials claiming Russia launched dozens of drones and missiles overnight, one of those missiles targeting the Kharkiv Palace Hotel, where Russia says it destroyed members of Ukrainian intelligence and armed forces, and targeted decision-making centers and military facilities. the Kremlin claiming the strikes were in response to Ukrainians shelling the border city of Belgorod Saturday, killing more than 20 people. It's one of the deadliest attacks on Russian soil since the start of the war. And came a day after Russia's 18-hour aerial bombardment across Ukraine, which killed at least 41 civilians. The final weeks of 2023 has seen an increased number of attacks from both sides.
We don't see the lines moving that much, both on the Ukrainian and the Russian side. So you're almost at a stalemate. The only thing that keeps on happening is these aerial attacks back and forth. So there has to be some type of negotiation.
Ukrainians now bracing for more attacks to start off the new year.
Imagine just that you hear the loudest bangs you've ever heard, and you hear them in front of you, and you see things exploding in the air.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council calling an emergency meeting twice since Friday, members making renewed calls for both sides to end hostilities. Heather?
Kamal, thank you. Ukraine is hoping to hold a presidential election in 2024, but the timing is uncertain because of the war. In about 60 other countries, though, almost half of the world's population, voters will head to the polls. CTV's Tony Grace on what will be a big year for democracy.
But he certainly supported an insurrection. No question about it.
The potential for an epic clash for the White House in November.
Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. It's a threat.
A key date on a calendar full of elections that could shape world events from the Israel-Hamas and Russia-Ukraine wars to tensions along the Pacific Rim.
The big test going on right now between democracy and autocracy, and the year 2024 is going to be very revealing.
One of the first tests in January, a tight race for Taiwan's presidency.
The possibility that China will interfere in that election is very, very high, I think.
Just today, Chinese President Xi Jinping calling reunification with Taiwan inevitable. Russia's relationship with China and its war with Ukraine are backdrops to Vladimir Putin's bid for a fifth term in March. 2 weeks before Volodymyr Zelensky was hoping to be re-elected in Ukraine. That voting date now uncertain amid the war. By May, India decides if Narendra Modi remains in power. In June, the European Union holds parliamentary elections.
The government is doing everything it can to fix this quickly.
In the UK, Rishi Sunak's Conservatives try to keep their 14-year grip from slipping to Labour. And everywhere, observers caution, rogue forces will be at play.
There will be election influence operations occurring, and we have to be aware of that as we assess each of these elections one by one.
Canada, meanwhile, feeling like it's in campaign mode. The Conservatives ramping up ads, the minority Liberals supported by the NDP, but trailing in the polls.
But the reality is, as soon as we kick into 2024, the election countdown will begin. And who knows what might happen. If the New Democrats decide to pull out of the parliamentary arrangement, we could look at an election in 2024 even.
Setting the stage for what Nanos calls a political roller coaster in Canada in 2024, while billions around the world make their own decisions about their country's futures. Heather.
CTV's Tony Grace in Toronto. Canada secured its future at the World Junior Hockey Championships for at least another game. The team qualified for the quarterfinals today.
Back Weber, a long shot that was blocked by Bob. Jaeger, lead pass for Celebrini. Macklin Celebrini in, Bittner's out, Celebrini scores!
17-year-old Macklin Celebrini scored twice as Canada beat Germany 6-3. The team finished second in their group and will now play Czechia in a knockout game on Tuesday. The puck drops tomorrow on the inaugural season of the Professional Women's Hockey League. Toronto will host New York for the first game. Here's CTV's Avery McRae with a look at a maritime matchup on opening day rosters.
I think the word historic has been thrown around quite a bit because it's just that.
Less than 24 hours ahead of puck drop on the inaugural Professional Women's Hockey League season, finding the words to encapsulate the feelings isn't easy for players.
I don't know if you'll be able to find a single person able to put it into words because there's so many emotions, so many feelings that are put into one single sentence.
We're all so pumped and obviously a little bit nervous, but excited in general to be able to play it finally with and against the best.
It's going to be a big day, the start of something pretty wonderful, and I'm honestly privileged to be a part of it.
The 6-team league will play a 72-game regular season, and Maritime fans will recognize a few familiar faces. The two lone New Brunswickers in the league, Sarah Bugeaud and Marlene Boissonneau, will suit up for Montreal in their first game Tuesday against Ottawa, with the pair already familiar with one another, with Bugeaud's uncle being Boissonneau's godfather.
New Brunswick is a very small area, so I think it's that much more exciting that there's that weird little fun connection there.
It's funny connection we have. But yeah, it's cool to be able to on our team and have a fellow New Brunswicker with me.
The remaining Maritimers will get their start tomorrow in the first ever PWHL game when Toronto faces New York. Nova Scotia's Ali Munro, Carly Jackson, and team captain Blair Turnbull will lead Toronto against her good friend and Halifax native Jill Saulnier, who will suit up for New York.
Coming from the Maritimes, when we were little, there weren't that many girls playing. So, to be able to hop on the ice and pretty much guarantee you're going to see another Maritime is pretty special.
Finally, having a league with all the best players has been a long time coming for the sport.
The goal of us, creating this league was so that it was going to be something sustainable, and so young girls can dream to be a part of it one day. Hopefully the goal is that girls can go out and buy a jersey, of their favorite female player. And I think that's just kind of the direction that we're heading.
We just went through Christmas, but it's almost like that Christmas morning feeling of something extraordinary that's about to unveil here.
The puck drops in the PWHL on New Year's Day. Avery McRae, CTV News, St. John.
Coming up, the hottest year on record.
Probably 95% of the town is burnt down.
Looking back at a summer of wildfires, smoke, and evacuations, and what's ahead. On the heels of a record-breaking wildfire season, experts in BC are turning to technology to help mitigate future devastation.
Oh my God.
FireSmart BC is appealing to the public to submit doorbell camera footage capturing summer fires to get a better picture of how flames spread.
It can show specifically how embers landed on the property. So was it a bush that then spread to the siding of the building, or was it an outbuilding or a shed that ignited first?
Experts hope the footage will help determine why some homes were destroyed while others were left standing. The flames right across this country, both damaging and deadly, leading to air quality alerts for most of the summer. Climate takes the number 2 spot in our top 10 stories of the year. CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier now on a warming planet.
Holy in 2023, Canada burned like never before. By early May, Alberta had declared a state of emergency. Over the spring and summer, hundreds of homes and buildings were destroyed.
I'm devastated. My wife's a wreck. We have no help.
And 38,000 Albertans were forced out of their homes because of fires inching too close.
What's your plan?
We're not sure. We don't know. Which way do you go? Seriously, right?
More fires and more evacuations across BC and the prairies and east, Ontario and Quebec, all the way to Atlantic Canada.
It's a pretty gut-wrenching feeling, walking around the turn to see your place. It's no longer there.
And late in the wildfire season, the Northwest Territories were hit hard.
Probably 95% of the town is burnt down.
Among the communities evacuated, the capital Yellowknife, with fire just a few kilometers from the northern city.
Don't know where we're going or what's all along.
The city of Yellowknife and us have been working shoulder to shoulder every single day, building up that last line of defense for Yellowknife.
It added up to the worst wildfire season on record by far. 4 firefighters were killed, 184,000 square kilometers of forest burned. For perspective, that's an area larger than Greece, about the size of Syria. It's 2.5 times the previous Canadian record set back in 1989. Along with fire came smoke. Air quality was impacted across Canada and as far away as New York. And experts say the science is more clear than ever. Climate change played a big role.
We're in uncharted territory. And, as we continue to warm, we're going to see more and more active fire seasons.
Heat makes conditions dry, and the drier forests are, the easier it is for fire to start and spread.
By almost any metric that we look at, wildfires are growing worse. They are burning larger areas, they're burning more severely.
And 2023 brought heat to the world like never before. It was the warmest year since humans started recording temperatures. July saw the planet set new records for the hottest day 4 days in a row.
The climate is warming, and we are starting to see events that remind us that the climate change is real, and we will see events like this more commonly in the future.
Climate change blamed for disasters around the world.
This was a home.
Fires in Hawaii that destroyed communities and claimed nearly 100 lives. Temperatures above 40 degrees, drought, and melting glaciers in South America. And heat waves across most of Europe.
And in the case of the heat waves in North America and Southern Europe, we found that today it's about a 1 in 10 year event. But without climate change, they would have been impossible to occur.
The climate crisis presents a threat to all nations, especially the poorest. That was the catalyst for a bold call at COP28. Nearly 200 countries agreeing to transition away from fossil fuels that contribute to climate change, like oil, gas, and coal.
This is a sea change moment, but it doesn't mean you've solved everything overnight. We have to keep pushing.
In Canada, the end of 2023 brought more evidence of climate change. Cities like Winnipeg and Edmonton brown and above 0 degrees for most of December. Wildfire forecasters are now hoping the rest of winter brings more snow.
So it'll still depend on the day-to-day weather and ignitions, but the dice are loaded for another active fire season.
Climatologists say last year's wildfire season was an extremely rare event that won't become the norm anytime soon. Still, that destruction, displacement, and economic impact is a taste of what a warming planet brings. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Edmonton.
Still ahead, viewing habits.
What's interesting about that is that didn't make the top 10 list on many countries around the world.
The YouTube videos Canadians watched most and what it says about the country. As 2023 comes to a close, YouTube Canada released its annual list of creators, music and videos that connected most with Canadians this year. And as CTV's Sean Leathong reports, there were some interesting trends.
I am going to show you something very delicious.
From creating in the kitchen to hitting a shot under pressure. To the songs we can't get enough of. YouTube's year-end list of most watched videos is a snapshot of what Canadians are watching. And the most watched video, Rihanna's Super Bowl 57 halftime show.
Halftime shows very often hit the top 10 list on YouTube because they are part of a huge pop culture moment.
And while YouTube has become a staple in entertaining Canadians with exciting and emotional content, there are some other uses setting Canadians apart.
One of the really interesting trends this year is that Canadians really come to YouTube to learn. And, whether that is how to fix your car or how to, create the perfect winged eyeliner.
That is a nearly silent drone system that can deliver a package from the sky right to my backyard.
An example is this video from Mark Rober about delivery drones coming in at number 3 in Canada.
And what's interesting about that is that didn't make the top 10 list on many countries around the world.
For Canadian creators, number 1 on this list?
It's Anna McNulty. And she is actually a self-taught contortionist.
Creating funny videos and at-home workouts, the 21-year-old grew her audience to 7.7 million subscribers. Top breakout creator is gamer Corey Tonge, whose funny videos resonate even with those who aren't in the gaming world. For music, the most watched video is Flowers by Miley Cyrus, followed by Last Night by Morgan Wallen. But what makes Canada's list unique is that 3 of the top 10 music videos come from Punjabi artists.
There's a really interesting trend happening in Canada where Canadian Punjabi artists are becoming not only local, but global music powerhouses. Artists like Karan Aujla and Icky made the list this year.
A distinct difference from other countries and providing a snapshot to where Canadian culture is sitting heading into 2024. Sean Leathong, CTV News.
After the break, sweet success. 2 Canadians looking for a big win in a global bake-off. A beloved Italian sweetbread that's become a holiday tradition in many parts of the world may put Montreal on the map. Two bakers have perfected their panettone recipe and are aiming to be named best in the world. CTV's Vanessa Lee gives us a taste.
Instantly recognizable for its domed shape, this Italian treat is enjoyed all over the world.
We stand by it.
Pastry chefs Anthony Daniele and Eric Guéry have dedicated countless hours to creating the best artisanal panettone.
We have a lemon, the orange, and 4 different vanilla.
They've mastered the traditional method of turning fruit into candied peel, which takes up to 20 days.
So that's our 100 years old sourdough.
And they're using a century-old mother dough, a gift from legendary Italian pastry chef Rolando Morandin. For Guéry, this labor of love began 9 years ago.
One day I read an article that said that panettone is the most difficult brioche to make in the world. So I sort of got curious and I tried. I failed. I tried again and I failed. And I think one day when I managed to make a real panettone, I just fell in love with it.
Making one is a meticulous process involving multiple stages of rising and careful handling of the dough.
16 hours and 20 minutes, the other one.
They've done at least 50 tests, each a 3-day process, and their persistence has paid off. They were recently chosen to represent North America at the Panettone World Cup in Milan next November.
It's the best because it's made with natural sourdough. It's made of a 3-day process. And so when we're talking about flavor, lightness, it's fluffy, it's like a great wine. You know, when you take the first bite and you swallow the bite of the panettone, but the aroma, the taste of the orange are still there after.
Daniele's passion for panettone is ingrained in his roots. He says it reminds him of all the joy shared at big family gatherings growing up. I couldn't wait for dessert so I could have a piece, he says. Eager to share their version with the world. A taste of tradition, they hope, takes the cake. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Montreal.
That is our final show for the year. We thank you for your continued trust and loyalty. As we look back on the past 12 months, we have witnessed some tremendous gains and tragic loss. A test of our character once again met with resilience. I'm Heather Butts. For all of us at CTV National News, we wish you a very happy new year. We leave you with celebrations from around the world. I'll see you tomorrow in 2024.